Today I'm going to show you how to smoke a delicious piece of beef chuck roast that we're going to take and turn into some awesome pulled beef. A beef chuck roast is one of my favorite cuts of meat to cook. There's a lot of reasons why I like this. It's usually on the cheaper side. Now, it's not as cheap as a brisket. It might be a little bit more expensive than a brisket. The difference here is with a brisket, you're gonna have to get like a 15-pound cut of meat there. With a chuck roast, you can get anywhere between 2.5 to 5 pounds, so you're not buying as much as when you get a brisket. It is probably gonna be more per pound, but you're not gonna be buying as much meat. The chuck roast has some awesome flavor, and if you can see here, it's got great marbling as well. It's also a very versatile cut of meat. You can cook it just like a brisket and make slices out of it. It's delicious that way. You can cut it up into chunks and make some beef burn ends, which is absolutely delicious. I have a video on that if you want to check it out. I'll put the link up top here. The other option, which we're going to be doing today, is to be making a pulled or a chopped beef out of this. Enough talking about it. Let's get right into this. So here's our chuck roast. Take a look at that. Nice marbling on this thing. Another fantastic thing about chuck roast is there is no trimming involved with this, so just take it right out of the package, season it, throw it on your smoker. For seasoning today, I'm going to be using my SPG blend. If you want to see this recipe, be sure to check out my seasoning video. Put a link to that up above here. Now you're going to want to liberally coat this thing. As you can see, it is a very large piece of meat. Make sure to get all the sides. And there we go. Beautiful seasoned piece of chuck roast. This is a perfect size. I believe this is just over 2.5 pounds. That's a good size chuck roast for smoking. That's that. Let's get it out on the smoker. All right, out at the smoker, and it is all fired up. Get it opened up. Let's get this chuck roast. Throw it right on the grate like that. There we go. Close it up. We're gonna let this smoke. I'm running around 225 to 250 degrees probably for the first couple hours. I just want to get a low temperature and get a nice smoke flavor on there. Now for wood, I'm going to be using mainly maple at first, but I'm going to mix in some oak there as well. So after it's on there for 2 hours, I'll probably bump the temp up between 250, 275. So it's going to be on the smoker, I think, for around 4 hours probably. What I want to do is get it up to around 170, 180. That's probably when the bark is going to look really nice. Once I got that nice bark on there, I'm going to pull it out and throw it into a tub of beef tallow. Then I want to leave it in there in the smoker at a very low temperature, probably 200 to 225, until it gets super, super tender. So that's the game plan. I'll see you guys out at the smoker when I give it a check. All right, so I know I said a couple hours, but it has been 5.5 on this chuck roast. Took a little longer than I thought it would, but let's give this thing a check. And this thing looks good. You want to get a really nice good bark on this thing before we pull it off and put it in that beef tallow. Now let me just give it a quick temperature check. So I thought we were going to be at the 180 mark to get this kind of bark. We're sitting at about 168. But we're going to get this pulled off, and over here I have a nice tray of beef tallow. Let's bring that over. Let's grab this beautiful chuck roast, and we're going to hopefully get this to fit right into this beef tallow. Just squish it down in there. Oh yeah, just want to coat the whole thing. I'd really like to get this thing totally submerged in the beef tallow, but we're not going to be able to do that, but it's going to be okay. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to get some tin foil, throw it over the top here, and I'm going to run this smoker around 225 degrees probably for the next 3 hours to let this thing get super tender. Maybe at the 1.5 hour mark, I'll flip it over, and I'll see you guys when this thing is finished. The chuck roast is done. Now I let it go on the smoker for another 3 hours in this beef tallow till it got to about 206 degrees. When I was probing it, it felt super tender, so I pulled it off. I let it rest in here for 1 more hour, and it is ready to go. So without further ado, let's get this thing out so we can see how it came out. All right, let's get a look at this. If you could smell this. Absolutely amazing. Oh yeah, dripping with goodness. So let's get this over onto the cutting board. And if you're worried about using all this tallow, don't worry about it, because you can strain this out, reuse it again, and it'll have extra flavor into it. So don't go throwing this away. Check this thing out. Very tender. Give you a nice little close-up. Does that not look delicious or what? Let me see if I can get a slice out of here. Oh yeah, check that out. Nice and juicy. This thing is tender. Just look at that. Yeah. just tender, falls apart. This is what we wanted. So let's go ahead, just make some pulled beef. Oh my. This is what you get with that beef tallow. Just makes this meat so tender. Get some good barbecue sauce, dump it on here. Eat this with some coleslaw. Can't go wrong with this, guys. Check that out. Look at the smoke ring you got. Check that piece out, huh? I'm telling you, that beef tallow method, it's the only way to go with this. Look at that. Look at that. Would you look at that? Come on, so good. There we go. All that's left to do now is give it a try. All right, so this was a complete success for pulled beef. Chuck roast has so many different options for what you can do with it. Now, there's a total cook time here of about 8 hours, so it does take a little long. I have had them cook a little quicker, but usually they'll take this long. I'm telling you, it's worth the wait. Now, I'm gonna give this a try, see how this came out. I'm gonna get a nice pinch of this pulled beef. Yep, so good. That has a super beefy flavor, absolutely delicious. It's not too fatty. Considering the fact that we cooked it in that beef tallow, it really isn't that fatty. It's got a nice meaty texture to it. Man, this stuff is so good. Now, I would definitely suggest eating this with some sort of a barbecue sauce. And for me, I think a nice thin vinegar barbecue sauce would go fantastic with this. But this stuff is so good. Highly suggest giving this stuff a try, guys. Now, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a like. As always, I'm going to put a link in the description down below of everything I like to use. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe right over here. I'd really appreciate it. But most importantly, guys, get out there and smoke something good.